Radio Rahim here with Eddie Hearn in Dallas. Mikey Garcia, another fight at 147 pounds. But the talk is not just about Jesse Vargas. It's about what happens beyond that. Manny Pacquiao on the table?
I'd like to think so. I mean, look, it's another one of those fights where we have two guys in the fight. People always talking about Mikey Garcia. Oh, when Mikey Garcia wins, what's next? Jesse Vargas, he's so up for this fight, I cannot even begin to tell you. The amount of people that's been phoning me saying, you know what, I fancy him to win this fight. For Mikey Garcia, he's so stubborn, people telling him, no, you're 140. You know, no, I can win a world title at 147. It's like, no, Mikey, you're better at 140. No, I'll show you. And that's what he's all about. So for him, he's looking for a shot at a world title again. For me, the Mikey Garcia-Manny Pacquiao fight is one of the best fights in boxing. But Jesse Vargas has got other ideas, so I think the best time for that question is on Sunday.
Well, Devin Haney has other ideas too.
He wants to fight as well.
He wants to fight at 140.
He'll fight any Garcia. He wants to fight Ryan Garcia at 135. He wants to fight Mikey Garcia at 140. He's here. I don't know if he's here yet.
He'll be here, I'm sure. He turns up everywhere there's a fight.
I tell you, listen, Devin Haney is a very good example to any young fighter about how to market yourself. He will go to the opening of an envelope for publicity. Fantastic. That's exactly what you got to do. If he was in here now, he would work the entire floor. He would be non-stop with interviews, everything. And fighters should learn from that.
Well, a guy who tends to be very serious, doesn't turn up that much, right now is on the forefront, it seems, of the list for Canelo, Callum Smith. I mean, is this deal done? Are we seeing Callum Smith, Canelo for May 2nd?
Not yet. Both him and Billy Joe still in the running. It's like backwards and forwards. I believe there was meetings taking place today with the Zone and Golden Boy and Canelo to try and resolve. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm almost certain it's one of the two. So I think this week we'll get a decision, and Billy Joe's losing his patience. Callum's waiting patiently.
Well, what's the difference between the two? What's the decision that needs to be made?
Money, the deal. Who'll take less, probably. It's generally what promoters try to do. God damn them.
For your sake, which is the better of the two fights?
Different kind of fights, aren't they? I mean, I think Billy Joe Saunders has the boxing ability to outbox and outskill anybody. But I think Callum Smith is much, much bigger than Canelo. I think he punches very hard, especially to the body, and I think he has more danger in that respect. But Billy Joe has more danger because he's a bit of a maverick. He's like Tyson Fury, isn't he? You can imagine him going in there, playing the mind games and putting in a performance, raising the levels. I think that's Billy Joe Saunders through and through. He fights at the level he's at, and I think that's why he's dangerous in that fight. And I think Callum Smith, who's probably been demotivated lately, would be so motivated for that fight and would be very dangerous.
To that point, you think that's what Tyson Fury did last Saturday night? Did he up the level, or did he just expose a guy who was at not quite the level we thought?
Both. It's not that Deontay Wilder wasn't at the level that we thought. We always knew what he was. He was, say, average fight, but he technically not the best at all, but very dangerous. Punch very, very hard. If you take that away from him, what does he have? No footwork, no defence, no skill, not a lot of strength. But if you let him back you up, if you let him pick his shots on you, he's going to be very, very dangerous. So I heard all about those tactics before the fight, and I thought they were terrible tactics. And now when you look at it now, you think actually they were genius tactics. And I think Sugar Hill and Andy Lee deserve a huge amount of credit because they came up trumps, but Fury executed it. And I think again with Fury, you've seen him look really poor against lower level opposition, but then when he does step up, like we said about like Billy Joe Saunders, he manages to raise his levels, like he did against Vladimir Klitschko, like he did even against Chisora, like he did against Wilder twice now. And I guess there is, but a lot of people are being very harsh on Deontay Wilder, mainly because of his excuse, which was probably the worst thing you could ever come out of in the history of boxing. But a lot of people wrote off Anthony Joshua, and a lot of people said after that fight, oh, AJ, yeah, he's actually no. Like
They said he should retire.
Yeah, but the difference is between AJ and Wilder is the resumes. The only person that Wilder has ever beat of note is Luis Ortiz. And how good is Luis Ortiz? Because that jury is well out, right? He's beaten his best win of his career, Brian Jennings. I mean, I'm talking about Luis Ortiz. Like, we don't. I mean, he's been a bit of a bogeyman, hasn't he? He is dangerous. He's a hard punching southpaw, but he's never beaten anyone of elite world level. So,
but they'd say that's because he can't get the elite world level fights. Nobody wants to fight him. They said the same thing when he had an opportunity to fight Joshua.
I put him in a couple of fights. I put him in with Malik Scott. I put him in with Dave Allen. You know, he didn't really excel in those fights. I'm not saying he's not a quality fighter, but the difference is when you start writing someone off and saying they're just no good. When you look at Joshua's resume, you can't say, oh, he knocked out Vladimir Klitschko, he's no good. You can't say he knocked out Alexander Povetkin, he's no good. You can't say you beat Joseph Parker, he's no good. You can't say you beat Dillian White, he's no good. You know? But with Wilder, you start questioning things, and now it's up to him to prove himself again.
Well, the one guy who does say all those things you just said, he's no good for all those reasons, is Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
He's got a laundry list of reasons why Joshua's no good.
Oh, about Joshua?
Is Tyson Fury good for Joshua?
Tyson Fury knows how good Anthony Joshua is. Don't worry about that. He knows that is a proper fight for him. He sparred him before when he was a baby, when AJ was a baby, like a complete raw novice. And I know sparring, but Fury knows how good Anthony Joshua is. He still thinks he can beat him, but he knows he's a different level to Deontay Wilder. That's for sure.
Do you think that the Fury fight is more difficult for Joshua to win than the Wilder fight would have been before?
Yes, always been more difficult because it's a different kind of fight. I mean, I always believed Anthony Joshua would beat Deontay Wilder, but also know that it's a dangerous fight. Still a dangerous fight for Fury in the third fight, you know? But watching that back, my worry for Deontay Wilder is everyone will do the same thing. Do you know what I mean?
Can he make an adjustment? I mean, if you think of him as only having the one thing.
You can't make an adjustment because I don't believe he has the skill to make the adjustment. Look at the adjustments AJ made in the Ruiz rematch. That took skill. I know people will say, oh, he moved around the ring all night. Yeah, but he made adjustments, right? I don't believe Wilder can make those adjustments in the fight. And if you got to think now, right? I mean, you imagine if Andy Ruiz boxed Deontay Wilder right now, like after seeing that, he would absolutely terrorise him, right? Because the mystique's gone, hasn't it? You know that. Oh my! Don't go too close to Wilder. Oh, wait for the right hand. Oh. Now it's like, okay, get my way in and just beat you up. You know. So that's, and whether that's true or not, whether he had an off night or whether Fury was just amazing, that's now for Wilder to prove.
Joshua's got Pulev coming up.
Maybe.
I thought you might say that. I think if this hadn't happened last Saturday, you'd be like, definitely.
Yes, I agree.
And Wilder has a rematch clause to exercise. How much pressure is it, you being an Englishman, to make this fight happen and get everything and everyone out of the way while there's still an opportunity for the undisputed, unified heavyweight champion to be a British fighter?
I think when you talk about undisputed, I think the window's very small. And the window might be next. Because what's going to happen is Bob Arum's got Tyson Fury and Kubrat Pulev, right? So he can manoeuvre that situation. If Bob came to us tomorrow and said, great news, I've got Pulev to wait, do you want to do Fury? It's done for June, July, right? Then there's Wilder now. Wilder, who I don't know if he's officially exercised the rematch clause, he said he's going to. We'll do it anyway because he might be thinking, listen, even if I get paid off to step aside, I've got to exercise the rematch clause. But then, like, once you're paying him off, it's like then it gets harder and harder to do. So we kind of wait, and I spoke to MTK, I spoke to Bob Arum, and said, let me know if that's even a possibility. And right now, the focus focus is kind of like, let's get the Pulev fight signed, which will be done in the next couple of days, and then if there is an opportunity over the next couple of weeks, we'll see.
Is that what Bob said?
Yeah. I mean, Bob wants to make Fury Joshua. It's the biggest fight, one of the biggest fights of all time. Certainly the biggest fight in boxing by a mile right now, right? So everybody wants to make it, but it's a case of when. If they do rematch, I just hope it happens in July, because then we can do the winner in November, December. If they wait till September, October, then also don't forget Dillian Whyte is the mandatory for February of next year. Then we start losing belts and listen, if we lose belts, we lose belts. But wouldn't it be great to do it for the Undisputed Heavyweight World Championship, particularly between two Brits?
How unhappy is Dillian Whyte to have to wait till February, and what kind of sense does that make? How many Februarys does it have to wait?
It makes no sense, and I don't know the solution other than keep telling the WBC. The WBC delayed him by a year while the UCAD stuff was going on. But what so many people have done in that Dillian Whyte situation is actually worked on or acted on newspaper or news reports, a lot of them unofficial, right? So we know from the get-go he was cleared to fight. But how can you say, okay, we're going to suspend him or extend his mandatory for a year when he hasn't even been proved guilty? And then when the case is finished, he never failed a drug test, he's not guilty, nothing at all. And it's like, okay, so are you going to put it back now? No. Right. No, it's still going to be February. It's just an excuse, that's all, right. Because they wanted to protect their champion. And that's not in the interest of fighters in the rankings. That's not in the interest of fighters that have dedicated their career to a particular governing body, that have actually given up opportunities with other governing bodies to be loyal to that particular one. So for Dillian, it's extremely frustrating, and all we can say is right now, the good news is Mauricio's given so many media reports about February 2021, it'll be very difficult for him to change it. So that's the worst case scenario.
Is Dylan giving you stick about you being the guy who's supposed to be out there campaigning for it to get changed?
Because he sees the work that goes on behind the scenes. We work as a team. Every correspondence that goes to WBC, we're both on. Every meeting that happens, his representatives are there. We've had guys out to the convention. We've had private meetings with Mauricio Suleiman in London with Dillian's representatives as well. There's been legal letters backwards and forwards. But there comes a point where it's soul destroying, really. And Dillian Whyte is remarkable because, when he was in a mandatory position, he boxed Josie Parker. He boxed Derek Chisora again. Right. He boxed Oscar Rivas coming off the Brian Jennings win. He's about to fight Alexander Povetkin. Do you know what I mean? And he's sitting there in a mandatory position and he's still fighting all these top 10 guys. And he should be commended for that. But, I always... Originally, he was supposed to be mandatory for the winner of last Saturday.
And no one else is saying this, but I still think Wilder Joshua is a hell of a fight, a hell of a matchup, and should for some reason he not exercise the Fury clause or an opportunity presents itself, shouldn't he be mandatory for the other belts? Could we see Wilder Joshua before an undisputed bout?
I always said, when Joshua lost, and people were saying, oh, well, that's it, we've lost Joshua Fury, we've lost Joshua Wilder. I went, no, I said, AJ's going to be around for 6-7 years. I said, he's going to fight everybody. As long as Wilder stays around and keeps winning and bounces back, and, Wilder Joshua is always going to be a very, very exciting fight.
Can he win the third fight?
No. He didn't win the first fight. He's boxed 19 rounds. He's won 3 rounds. And 2 of them were because of the knockdown. Yeah? So if they weren't knockdowns in that round, he wouldn't have even won those rounds. He's mentally, if you look at his body language during that fight, I feel sorry for Mark Breland, because I think Mark Breland should have done it earlier. He was coming back to the stall, putting his head in a towel. He was away with the fairies.
Lastly, how does Joshua beat Fury after all we've seen from Fury? We've seen him beat Wilder, by most people's estimation, twice in 2 totally different ways. We've seen what Joshua brought in this last year. Where are his advantages? How does he beat Fury?
You box him, you fight him on the inside. You know what he's going to do, and you know that he's got the ability to do whatever he wants. He won't walk Joshua down like he did to Wilder. He won't. Joshua's too strong. He's too sharp, and he's too good. You know, he's not just waiting for this big right hand over the top. He's got left hooks. He's got uppercuts. He can fight to the body. He can fight on the inside. He can fight long. You know what I mean? It's not the same. And Fury knows that. Fury will fight the fight against AJ that he boxed against Vladimir Klitschko.
So who's the favorite in that fight?
Well, the bookmakers said Tyson Fury. I don't believe AJ loses that fight, but right now the bookmakers say AJ is the underdog in that fight, and I love it. I love it. I'd rather be the underdog in that fight, because when he wins, he's going to get all the credit in the world. It's the first time he's been the underdog in a fight in his whole career. The Ruiz rematch, even the Vladimir Klitschko fight, which is a slight narrow favourite in that fight. So now, and he's got that underdog mentality. He loves it. He wants this fight bad, and we'll get it 100%.
I think we all do. I want all three of these fights bad, so hopefully we get all of what we want from the heavyweight division. You're the man to help make that happen. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Radio Rahim with Eddie Hearn.